Um, so I wanted to start posting about my books basically and kind of talking about the lore, like letting this channel be pretty much a deep dive for the books I'm writing. And the first one I wanted to talk about, or the first thing in my books I wanted to talk about, was the main character of the first book, which I'm still working on the name of. I know it's part of a trilogy called Planet Yeox, but I'm trying to decide what the first book should be called because it doesn't take place on the planet I was originally intending. But the main character of this first book, and most likely the second book as well, her name is Ochre, and she is a android. I can't really get too much into like what exactly she is because there's a lot of spoilers around that. But basically, she's um, as you start reading the story, she's an android, and come to find out there's a bit more to it than that. She is really big. So when I was designing the character, at least from a writing perspective, I was just, I was thinking of stuff I've been influenced by, which is like a lot of video games and movies and stuff. And whenever there's in sci-fi a a action hero, they tend to make them really big. So I was thinking of guys like Master Chief, Samus, you know, even Doom guy. Although I haven't really played the Doom series, but kind of just the idea of these big, super tall armored figures. So Ochre, as the android, is about 6'6" or 6'5", with like of course the really broad armor, shoulder pads and stuff. Like she's totally suited up in this armor that's sort of also like a body. It's not like as if there's a suit and she's inside of it. Like she is the suit. So the way her anatomy is set up, and Acre as a character, at least with how the book starts, um, she's very devoid of personal opinion. She's kind of like a she's kind of like an artificial calculator, always weighing probabilities and thinking about you know optimal outcomes and things. So if you were to talk to her, she wouldn't really conversate in the way that there because there's in the lore of the book, there's androids and robots designed to um, facilitate the human experience. So they keep humans safe, they talk with humans, they reduce social anxiety and stuff. Like they're there for the um, the well-being of humanity. But Acre is a combat android, so she's designed by the military, unlike the other droids, and basically all of her faculties are designed towards calculating. Okay, if I take this action, how will this play out? And her only priority is keeping humans safe. So she can't hurt any humans. She can't override that, and she can't do anything that would put humans in danger. So it makes her uh, not a stand-in per se. Like you don't project yourself onto her, but she's sort of she's sort of like a narrator in a way, because the way she perceives the world is that she has this built-in scanner, so she's always checking like every little minute detail. She's checking the temperature, she's checking the atmosphere composition, she's checking everything, she's scanning for life forms. And it's not until later in the book that that dynamic is explored more. But as you get her at just the way she starts, she's very uh she's very just set in that mode of constant analysis. So when I was writing the book, part of the challenge was to make sure that through Ochre, I'm not just describing the book, right? I'm not just describing what's going on as if she weren't even there. It was sort of a challenge to make sure she was always included in some way, if the narrative was on her in that moment, because the narrative does eventually switch around to other characters. But when it's on Acre, so I would try to incorporate things like, oh, she's thinking about her orders. She's thinking about if there's any humans nearby. She's trying to figure out, how did this get here, and what is its relevance to humanity. So a lot of those thoughts creep in as you read the book, as you explore the narrative, because that's um, her and her personality uh, coming in as you read the book. And she's a fun character to have as the protagonist because she's a very good fighter. So uh, some of my favorite scenes to write were involving her, and maybe a fight scene. There's at least three or four. There's four, I believe. I haven't looked at the book in a minute because I'm writing a second book, but um, there's at least four action scenes, and writing Akre in these is very fun because she's sort of this high octane, high capability protagonist. She can move really fast, and she's very strong, very lethal, very, very nimble. So there's not a lot of movements or physical physical interactions that are beyond her. So it's kind of like she can do, like, of course she can't create things out of the blue, but as far as just physicality, she's she's very high up there. And that is just insanely fun to write, like when she's fighting just groups and dozens of enemies, or really fast enemies. She can keep up with them and keep them on her toes, and she's always able to anticipate what's going to happen next. And she does have her weaknesses, which get explored through the course of the novel, mostly being that she's one big weakness she has is that because she's an android, she is electronic, she does run on fuel, and eventually that fuel can run out. And within um, if she's not on board a Federation ship, because that's who she works for, if she's not on one of those, she doesn't have any way to refuel. So that becomes a problem if she's far out and unable to uh, return to base in time, basically to her home base, which is a federal, you know, cruise ship in outer space. So she has to be careful about how much she's expending herself and things like that. But overall, she's a very fun character. Um, she is black. In this book, um, race isn't. It's not the forefront of anything that's going on. Or it does become later, but not in the sense of black and white. But she's designed after a black woman, so her face, even though her body is armored and doesn't necessarily resemble a standard human, her face and her hair, she has locks. She has like these long shoulder lengthish locks, and the the military designed her that way so that when she's on the battlefield and she's fighting um, ally soldiers and the army that she serves, they can not mistake her for an enemy. She looks identifiable to human recognition patterns. So where it's like, oh, this looks like one of us. She's designed to be built that way, and her appearance boosts morale in the army. Where they see this kind of the super soldier. So she's sort of designed in that way. And I look forward to writing her in the second novel. She goes through a lot of changes in the first novel, and for the second one, it's going to take place on a different planet than the first one takes place on, because I can't give too many spoilers, of course, but yeah, I'm very excited to continue working with this character, and I think she will definitely be a staple in the series. I'm not sure if beyond the trilogy, if it's going to become its own full world that I just continue writing books for, or if it's just going to remain, as a trilogy. But she's definitely going to be an important character in the mythology and the lore of this series as I continue to write it. And yeah, I'm excited to share her with you guys as well as her story. And all I can say really is thanks for listening.